A long line of widespread discrimination leads to a community of barrier breakers.
I don't wear my minority status on the outside like a female or a black pilot would.
But despite the historic progress, there's still a long fight ahead for equality in the LGBTQ community.
After years of doing something that I love, it was taken away from me because of how I identify.
A diverse group of individuals, often excluded, creating welcoming spaces for all in the Queen City.
It's one thing to be tolerated, and it's one thing to be accepted.
United in their passion to support one another.
It builds friendship, it builds family, it builds community.
These are the voices of the LGBTQ community across our region.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for our Queen City Pride Month special. I'm Derek Dellinger. For the next 30 minutes, Queen City News is highlighting LGBTQ trailblazers in our community. But the journey to securing gay rights has not been an easy one. The raid and rebellion of the Stonewall riots was the spark for the modern LGBTQ rights movement. The June 1969 uprising by young gays, lesbians, and transgender people in New York City started the annual observance of Pride Month. Those series of protests led to what are now celebrations in cities across the U.S., including here in the Queen City. But more than 5 decades later, members of the LGBTQ community are once again feeling like they are under attack. Several states, including the Carolinas, are pushing to restrict transgender student athletes from playing on certain school sports teams. Queen City News anchor Julian Sador introduces you to two people on opposite sides of the debate. A trans swimmer who just wants to compete against the boys, and a North Carolina state senator looking to protect girls like the ones she used to coach.
I mean, I've always loved it, and I sound cheesy when I say this, but like a place to call home.
For 17-year-old Sean Radek, the pool is his happy place.
Everything just exits my mind, and all I have to think about is making it across the pool or swimming a couple more laps, and it's amazing.
Finding an escape to calm yourself is important for all of us. Maybe even more so for a teenager like Sean on the cusp of adulthood. But for roughly 3 years, he stopped doing the thing that makes him the happiest.
After years of doing something that I love, it was taken away from me because of how I identify.
At 12 years old, Sean came out as transgender.
Going to the pool, having to wear a female bathing suit, that really affected me.
Most of it, he says, was because he just felt uncomfortable swimming. He knew he wanted to present male, but actually doing so at the pool came with its own risks.
I was very scared of getting made fun of by other people and, getting outed as trans in this neighborhood. I don't know the kind of people that live here, and so it was a very scary idea for me.
Sadly, those fears are backed in reality. Statistics show trans people like Sean are more likely to be beaten, raped, or killed than cisgendered people. They also show something that Sean's scars bear a reminder of, that they're more likely to harm themselves and hospitalized for suicide attempts.
I think I just got to the point where I really was so overwhelmed by existing, and that life seemed to be too much for me.
Ultimately, though, he couldn't stay away from the one place that felt like a safe haven. So he summoned up the courage, went to tryouts, and told his coach the deal. That he was trans, on gender-affirming hormones, but that he wanted to swim.
So my coach was like, yeah, absolutely, we can put you on a guy's team if that makes you more comfortable. And I was like, that absolutely does.
Just like that?
Pretty much, yeah.
How relieved were you to be like, okay, that first hurdle, we're over.
Yeah, it was an amazing feeling, just to know that, I was seen and heard by somebody, and that I was where I wanted to be.
And just like that, Sean made his return to the pool, but this time with the tank top binder on, covering up what he didn't want the rest of the world to see. How did the kids on the team receive it?
They didn't know, and I think that was the one thing that I was really happy about. Nobody knew that I was trans. Nobody knew that I was different, and that to me meant a lot.
For Sean, his high school doesn't have a swim team. If they did, he says he'd love to compete and plans to do so in college. But that's where things might get a little tricky. Here in the Carolinas, nationally, even internationally, the debate of who trans athletes should compete against has been gaining momentum. The main two questions being raised: is it fair and is it safe?
I want all women to be able to compete on a level playing field.
North Carolina State Senator Vicki Sawyer represents parts of Iredell and Mecklenburg counties. A former athlete and former girls softball, volleyball, and basketball coach, she defines her take on the matter as pro-women, not anti-trans.
So as far as trans women, where should they be able to compete?
I see that they are welcome to play any sport that's not women's. So whether that's a co-ed league or a league that's, men and co-ed, that's where they should be.
Sawyer has drawn criticism from LGBTQ plus communities for her stance, but wants to make it clear.
You don't hate trans people?
No, gosh, no. No.
Don't have anything against them, right?
No, gosh, no, not a bit.
She says her only mission is to protect women when it comes to their opportunities and their safety.
Athletics at its core is one of the purest forms of competition, and that should be made level based on not only your hormones, but also, your abilities.
When it comes to hormones and leveling the playing field, though, that's where it gets more complicated. Gender-affirming hormone therapy for transgender men and women can change things like body mass, bone density, estrogen, and testosterone levels to those similar of cisgender athletes.
Let's say there's more research done and it proves that we still can't tell a competitive advantage from a research standpoint. Would that change your opinion at all?
What I'm going to look at is real world, everyday examples, like the Carey woman, or like the young woman in Cherokee who got hurt, or like Riley Gaines, who couldn't get on the podium because a biological male took her spot. Those are real world examples. I don't know that research would change that.
However, some medical professionals think it should.
We have enough science going back now, into the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
HIV director and physician's assistant Wesley Thompson has been providing gender-affirming hormone care since the late 80s.
Hello?
He says after a trans person has been receiving hormones for 2 years, the playing field between trans and cisgendered athletes would be level across the board.
There would not be a superiority of a trans woman competing with cis women after that period of time.
Taking it a step further, he says a simple blood test could prove that, giving those athletes the documentation to remove any doubt.
Here's my testosterone level, here's my estrogen level. I am equal.
As for Sean, there is one scenario where he thinks him swimming against others wouldn't be equal. If the momentum continues and more trans athletes aren't allowed to compete against the genders that they identify with.
If you were to swim against cis girls, how would you stack up, you think?
I think if I, went against a cisgender girl on my team, I would probably beat them.
Would that be fair?
I don't think it would, no.
He also cautions lawmakers that if they really care about safety, that forcing trans men to play with women and trans women to play with men would force many of them to be publicly outed because of their appearance.
That is taking lives, and I don't know if they realize that yet, but something as simple as not allowing someone to be on a sports team, that is completely, and it's seriously so damaging to someone. You're taking away a community for them, you're taking away friends, you're taking away something that they loved just because of their gender identity.
At the end of the day, it's Sean's hope that something can be done to include everyone, and that more people will be at least willing to sit down and have a conversation.
It doesn't take much to talk to a trans person, I'm here, I'm talking, I'm willing to talk, and I wish people were more open to having conversations like this.
In the meantime, though, Sean will be here at his happy place, shutting out the noise.
Leveling the playing field, a group of Charlotte gamers stepping outside the confines of the console to build a community of solidarity. And creating diversity in the cockpit, Queen City News hits the skies to introduce you to a trailblazing pilot who is not your typical airman. Queen City News recognizes Pride Month. Erin O'Flaherty is the first openly gay contestant to compete in the Miss America pageant. Originally from Florence, she came out when she was 18 years old. She was crowned Miss Missouri back in 2016. We're proud to honor and showcase our diverse community. The LGBTQ community thrives and relies on togetherness, but sometimes finding the right players takes a little bit of work. Queen City News anchor Annie Satowski shows us how one Charlotte group formed in the darkest days of the pandemic has really leveled up.
In a time when people can't seem to agree on much,
oh my God,
finding a unifier, a level playing field, is rare.
When you pick up that controller and you sit next to somebody, all that matters is what's happening on that screen.
It's the whole reason Johnny Saldana started the Charlotte Gamers Network, an LGBTQ-friendly group of, you guessed it, gaming enthusiasts.
A lot of people, when they first hear about us or see what we do, are kind of surprised that we're able to bring together so many people through their shared passion of gaming.
But since its humble Facebook group beginnings, CGN has really stepped outside the confines of the console through paid memberships and large-scale events.
Our number one thing is creating best-in-class events and experiences for our folks. So we've been able to produce Pride activations, conventions, concerts, festivals. There are several different perks that our CGN Plus members are able to enjoy, such as VIP advanced movie screenings. We get to see all the Marvel movies days before the public. We get tickets to Broadway shows.
Plus, events like this one at Charlotte Art League and NODA, a pre-party and special movie screening during the Real Out Charlotte Film Festival.
What's really cool about this particular screening is that there's also a companion video game that we're able to play here as well. It's a 4-player local co-op fighting game, and it's a lot of fun.
Even though there's a gaming aspect to almost every event, you don't actually have to like video games to join the fun.
So you're telling me you've never played Mario Brothers?
No, I don't even know who Mario is.
Gary Knight may not know a Nintendo from an Xbox, but he says he does know a good thing when he sees it. So he's been a CGN member since the beginning.
It's open to absolutely everyone, regardless of age, regardless of sex, regardless of anything else. It's open to everybody, and it's welcoming.
It's why the group is constantly drawing new members, like Nathan Ryder.
It builds friendship, it builds family, it builds community. Social events are extremely important, and even more so to the LGBT community because, you know, we've always been sort of out there on the fringes.
And if CGN's rapid growth is any indication of what could be next, you might start seeing them everywhere.
It is absolutely our plan to be able to build chapters throughout the country and expand our operation from coast to coast.
Annie Satowski, Queen City News.
Breaking through the clouds in the cockpit, how pilots are helping clear the way for future LGBTQ workers. Queen City News recognizes Pride Month. Fortune Feimster is a nationally known actress and comedian born in Charlotte and raised in Belmont. She gained notoriety as a writer and panelist on the hit show Chelsea Lately. Feimster has also made her mark in the world of acting with several television and movie roles. We're proud to honor and showcase our diverse community. For decades, gay men have worked as flight attendants in the aircraft cabin, but what about as airmen on the flight deck? Chief Transportation Correspondent and veteran pilot May K. Beeler catches up with a trailblazing gay pilot in the cockpit.
While I wear my NGPA pin on my lapel, it might not be as obvious. I'm not walking into a flight deck with, big rainbow wings. I'm Nathan Galletti, I'm a gay man, and I'm a first officer for American Airlines.
Nathan isn't your grandfather's stereotypical airline pilot. Times have changed, and so has diversity in the cockpit. What hasn't changed? The right stuff, or the skills required to be there.
As an aviation professional, taxiing an aircraft and flying around has nothing to do with sexual orientation.
The aviation industry has traditionally been known as a boys' club. The majority of pilots, white males. And while Nathan does fall into the white male category, due to his sexual orientation, he's a minority on the flight deck.
I don't wear my minority status on the outside like a female or a black pilot would every single day, where, you're obviously those things to, the captain or the flight crew that you're working with. So I can pick and choose. I can choose not to reveal depending on maybe how I feel. So I'm a pilot for American Airlines. I'm in my 10th year as an airline pilot. I started back in high school. And at this point, I just enjoy flying planes. It's a fun puzzle every day that's a little bit different, but also very much the same.
A puzzle Nathan pieces together with the support of kindred spirits. Nathan is a member of the Charlotte chapter of the National Gay Pilots Association, or NGPA. It is the world's leading nonprofit advocating for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer plus aviation professionals and enthusiasts.
An inclusive flight deck is a safe flight deck.
Executive Director Justin Elixon Andrews says since 1990, NGPA's mission has been to build, support, and unite the community. 5,000 strong, NGPA's members take on challenges in the aviation community, including a culture of discrimination and hostility. They break stereotypes. They make aviation a better place. It's a family environment offering the support that may be missing at home.
A lot of people come out to their families. They lose that relationship with them, unfortunately. So joining NGPA is not just joining a trade association with members who are now your new chosen family. And it's just a bonus that they happen to like airplanes.
Change is in the air, with a growing number of professional pilots identifying as various sexualities and gender identities. Old school veteran pilots must adapt.
In aviation, we're dealing with a very traditional mindset of individuals in the cockpit because historically that's just what has been hired. So while they might be a little rough around the edges, what I found as any minority, if you do a good job, we fly the plane well, and I kind of approach things in a jovial perspective anyway. So even if I'm getting discriminated against, I might not even notice. It might just brush right in one ear and out the other.
While acceptance of the LGBT community in professional arenas has made great strides over the decades, the current political climate indicates a backslide. The Human Rights Campaign has officially declared a state of emergency for LGBTQ people in the United States, citing the passage of more than 75 laws in over a dozen states that target the community. We will not be quiet. The uptick in prejudice and violent attacks may discourage some aspiring pilots from pursuing their dreams. Nathan says, pursue them anyway.
I would say aviation is built on people doing what others said was impossible. So I would say reach for the stars and do what you can. Every day is changing. Our pilot group is getting younger, and the younger generation is fully open to all LGBT, and they're much more inclusive as long as they're here to do a good job in the cockpit.
It's a first-of-its-kind place in the Queen City. We visit a safe space for the local LGBTQ community. Queen City News recognizes Pride Month. Stephen Rhodes is the first openly gay NASCAR driver. The Goldsboro native came out as a teen shortly before making his racing debut. Rhodes made history the first time he hit the track when he became the first LGBTQ driver to compete in a NASCAR Touring Series event. We're proud to honor and showcase our diverse community. Every once in a while, you find a place where you just fit in, where everyone is accepted. For the LGBTQ community in Charlotte, it's a massage therapy clinic. Queen City News Chief Business Correspondent Taylor Young takes us to a first-of-its-kind business built as a safe space for that community.
For the majority of Americans, finding a place that welcomes you is an afterthought.
So there are a lot of places that my husband and I will walk into a little bit separate. There are places that we one of us will go and kind of scope it out before we take the family there.
Joshua Jernigan, a married gay man with 2 children in Union County, says that's not the case.
You don't realize all the things you have to do until you sit down one day and go, oh wow, I am doing all of this just to go hang out at this, place.
So when he does find a business he feels safe in, he almost always returns.
He was like, we're queer friendly, come. So we went, and it was one of the most amazing experiences because we didn't have to hide who we were.
We say that it's care for everybody and everybody.
Inside Mythic Massage, Max Gomez created an oasis. A place where clients can come in, relax, and just be themselves.
It's one thing to be tolerated, and it's one thing to be accepted into different spaces. It is something entirely different to be affirmed, and I like to refer to us as aggressively affirming.
Gomez, a trans man, opened the first and only queer, trans, and disabled-owned massage office in Charlotte. His tables are wider, his art is loud, and his treatments include caring for patients following gender reassignment surgeries.
Just knowing that that there's a place, that I have provided a place and a culture where people can be disabled, can be fat, can be queer, and not feel like they leave this office needing to change themselves really means a lot to me.
It's a place that once you go, you tend to come back, not only for the massage, but the community.
I know that if I want to go get a massage or if I want to just go and hang out for a few minutes, I can just go. Like, he is welcoming to everybody.
Reporting in Charlotte, Taylor Young, Queen City News.
We want to thank you for joining us to honor the diverse group of trailblazers in our community. We hope our stories inspire you to lead change for a new generation of innovative LGBTQ youth. I'm Derek Dellinger from all of us at Queen City News. Happy Pride Month.